Hot dog, not
Hot
ice
dog,
cream
not ice
cone.
cream cone.
Right.
Summarize for everyone in the
The theme
audience
for
today.
Talk about hot dogs at least once a day, Dan, just to prove I'm an American, in case anyone was confused. All right, we are thrilled to be here in Cannes, celebrating a decade of leveraging deep learning to power performance for brands across the industry. So the evolution of technology and industry always starts with a conversation. So today I'm excited to be here with Melissa Gordon-Ring, President, IPG Mediabrands Health, and Denise Dalton, Vice President of Marketing at Bristol Myers Squibb. Welcome. Thank you
Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited. We're going to talk today about how they're navigating innovation with integrity, staying grounded in patient-first values, while still embracing thoughtful applications of emerging tech. Right, anything you want to add before we jump in? Besides hot dogs and ice cream cones?
Hot dogs and ice cream cones. No, I'm just excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nice.
Me too.
We have few people trickling in. We'll give them a moment.
Okay.
All right. Well, ladies, in pharma, trust is everything,
Yes.
as we know. So how do you think about forging and maintaining trust with your consumers, especially how your brand shows up through marketing? Denise, you want to kick us off?
Sure, I'm happy to kick that off. So I think, I guess it's a blessing and a curse that we're so regulated, because in pharmaceutical advertising, you always have to show the efficacy with the safety. You can't just say our product is great. You can't make misleading claims, et cetera. I think when it comes to that part of like what we say about our brands, I think inherently we are authentic. When we look at the images that we're bringing in, we try to always have a patient representation that is truly what a patient who's struggling with this disease could be, if we aren't blessed enough to actually have a real patient speak on the product on our behalf. And the FDA makes us say like actor portrayal or generated by AI. So there's kind of that built in there. But I think in general, in the pharmaceutical industry, to maintain that trust, it's focusing on the science and what the science can really do to change someone's life, to be, perfectly honest. That's why we're in the business that we're in. So that part, I think, we just have to be mindful of, because I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, the consumers are just getting a little bit more interested on how that content's developed. So we need to make sure that we're keeping their values and what they need in mind when we're doing things. Yeah.
And I think, trust is an incredibly important thing in absolutely every single thing that we do, not just within the agency, but within our partnerships with our clients and our partners. As we think about the importance of trust and ensuring that it's at the forefront, one of the spaces and the places that we really have leaned into as well, more recently, is trust in data as well. And people are becoming a bit more aware of where their information is going and where it's not going. So we have to ensure that we're using, trustworthy data providers and partners that are allowing us to infuse that in everything that we do, and ensuring that there's an open conversation, and that we're using ethically sourced data that makes sure that we are, increasingly paying attention to not just privacy, but where that data could go in the future.
You mentioned AI generated content, but let's jump into AI in general. Obviously, that's what we're on the Cognitiv yacht. We're going to talk about it. But how did you really build that trust and feel comfortable leaning into a new technology like AI, knowing that people might be sensitive to it?
So at Bristol Myers Squibb, we haven't quite jumped into AI to develop the images or anything along those lines. So we really look at AI as being a data solution, as Melissa was saying. How can we find those insights faster? How can we get the results of how a campaign is performing faster? And then how can AI help us figure out what is the next piece of information that a healthcare provider or a patient might need to know along that journey of education? So we're dabbling into it to see how we can be more efficient in what we're actually serving up to the people who are engaging with our content. And that's, as I said, we're dabbling in it. We work with great partners at IPG Mediabrands to help us find new patient clusters, or help us figure out where perhaps people are going in spaces that we're not used to them going for that sort of information, and how do we leverage that. But we haven't quite dabbled into the generated content beyond us figuring out, as I said, like what's that next piece of information that I need to either know how I'm going to treat my patients, or as if I'm a patient, as I'm going along my patient journey with this disease, what else do I need to know as I change where I am within that journey?
So staying pretty consumer focused.
Oh, yeah.
Customer first.
Yes, for sure.
And we're using it in a number of different ways. I think it's starting to be infused in all of the work that we're doing. The way I like to think about it is AI with purpose, not just to say that we're doing it. Our tools already have that incorporated, which is amazing, but we're really trying to find ways to use it efficiently, to help us move faster when it comes to actually engaging with patients and physicians, and more importantly, allowing it to, like, ideally having some fun with it and challenging our teams and our clients to work with us in different ways, so that when we can do things faster, we have more time for insights and partnership and innovation, which will allow us to help, move more quickly in terms of reaching patients and doctors.
I think I'm going to tag on one thing, Melissa, that you said. It said AI with intention. So how can AI help us be smarter and give our teams and the ability and that time to think instead of doing some of the maybe routine and multiple ways of doing things? How do we shorten that time so that our teams have some free time to think? And for anyone out there, personal side note, we haven't talked about this, but if you lead a team, I highly recommend ChatGPT to write your performance reviews for your team.
Did we talk about this? I think we did.
Well, I told you I did it last year. One of my jobs at Bristol Myers Squibb, I had about 12 direct reports. It comes in very handy to put all the nice language around the bullet points of what they've done. So it's your tidbit for the day.
That came up recently, actually. We asked people what they're using AI for, and someone said, writing my performance reviews.
It works for yourself too, for your self-evaluation.
Yeah, they're like,
So
I
we
mean,
use
they
it a lot for meeting notes too. So it's embedded in our tools now, which is absolutely incredible. But some clients that we work with, actually, we can't use it because of their legal and privacy, parameters. But it's super, super helpful, and I love it where you can take a picture of your handwritten notes, because I'm still a little old school and I like my
Yes.
handwritten notes. But it will take the handwritten notes for you and then pull it all together, and it's that to me is a time saver, and then I can send it, and it's amazing.
So sorry, I'm going to jump in as well. It's interesting about the notes. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and a woman was talking about AI and saying, when it summarizes the notes, it's extraordinarily helpful, but you lose that conversation. So you don't necessarily have that back and forth. So again, it's that AI with purpose. Like, so maybe read the summary and then reach out to that person from that meeting if you have a question, or ask them to clarify something. So you still have that human connection.
The
It's
human all the loop.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
I'm the same. I need to handwrite my notes,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I often end up with multiple pieces of paper floating around. So not super efficient. I could use this one. All right. We've talked about trust. You've both mentioned partnership. Talk to me a little bit more, or talk to us a little bit more about the partnership that you have forged, agency, client, especially when pushing the boundaries and leaning into new innovative strategies. How did you kind of build that mutual trust, and what does that look like in practice?
Well, sure, I can start. First of all, I'm grateful for the partnership that we have with BMS and with Denise. I think when we started our relationship, I think the pitch process started like two and a half years ago.
Yeah.
So they've been a client of ours for about 2 years. It was incredible. I think from the minute that we started to listen to what it is that was important to them, we created a team specifically for them called Empath, because empathy was such an incredible, a piece of who BMS is, and infused in how they think about their patients and how they go to market. And we just were able to forge a strong relationship, but that was built on honesty and trust. And I say this all the time, trust is built in increments. And it takes a lot of those, things where you can put trust in the bank so that you can start to make recommendations and you can start to lean on one another, especially when the conversations are good, and especially and when the conversations aren't so positive, because there's always, a positive intent, but sometimes things happen. But more importantly, we have been able to kind of build a team that wants to work on this business, that knows and understands the priorities of BMS, and have made them their own. And they, it's a team that people want to work on. Like Lori is here; she leads the team, and this is, it's something we're incredibly proud of.
I agree, and I think that it was sharing like what is that strategy. So the vision of BMS is on the page. It's to enhance human life, but how do we make that real for people who aren't working in the hallway every day and we don't see the patient posters that are all throughout our entire site and all of our facilities? And I think it's being true to who that is. And really, in our industry, it is all about the patient. That individual has to decide to take that pill, go for the infusion, self inject, whatever the drug delivery system is. And how do we work very closely with our empath partners to make that real for the patient so that they can understand the benefits and the risks that of whatever it is that they're going to be taking, and bringing that back to the team at Empath. So it's not just that we sit in our bubble in my office at Bristol Myers Squibb. We share all of that with our team so they understand what our priorities are, how we infuse everything about the patient and everything that we do. And I think that, to Melissa's point, it's not from day one, but it certainly is having that open and honest conversation about what we're trying to achieve. And to your point, when it doesn't work, what did we learn and how can we pivot and then hopefully make it work the next time?
We've obviously talked about patients. We've talked about AI bringing efficiency, helping you do more for them. I think also there's patients, there's caregivers, there's doctors, there's all these other kind of people that are involved in someone deciding to take a pill or do the infusion, whatever it may be. How do you think AI is going to help you kind of speak to all their different needs and get really personalized with what a caregiver might need to know versus a patient versus a doctor?
I think it all starts with the insights that you're learning from those groups, I'll say, for not to diminish any of their roles in the entire care of a disease, but everyone does have a different need. And I'll even go a step further. Every physician or pharmacist or caregiver or patient has different needs as they become more familiar with the disease, as they've been living with their disease for a longer period of time, that those needs change as well. And I think, back when I started, I'm a seasoned marketer. I was told not to say old. I was told at one point to say I'm seasoned. So I'm very seasoned. Um, and we used to have like our 3 core messages, and our field force would say that, and we would translate those into patient friendly language. And that was about all that we ever said about the product. And with some of the tools that Melissa and her team bring to have us be aware of, is what is the engagement with some of that content. And then, okay, if no one's engaging with what we put out there, maybe we need to deviate from what those 3 core messages were, and maybe we need 6. Maybe we need to think about how we're approving our content a little bit differently in order to get those messages out to more people. It's always a difficult discussion when you don't have the budget to reach a certain audience, but I think with some of these tools to develop things faster and to learn faster, we will have the ability to develop more materials for these groups. Pharmacists, to your point, it's a whole ecosystem to take care of patients, and everyone has their different needs, and everyone has a different need depending, as I said, like where they are on that journey. And we just have to remind ourselves of that and develop things that they're looking for.
Just to add, it's really important to understand your audiences because they are so special and unique. And to your point, they all play a different role within the patient journey, but it really is a care journey. It's almost like a care ecosystem, right? When you think about it, different people come in and come out. But our ability to tag and to track and to understand the role of each of those different touch points by each of those different people within that ecosystem is incredible now in terms of that connectivity. And that's where AI can play in as well to help us move faster. But it really comes back to understanding those audiences and what's going to be more meaningful to them. But more importantly, having those mechanisms and triggers in place to change and be agile and pivot as they're learning, because a journey can be a long one for a certain group or a short one for a different one. And we want to be able to address that quickly, because I say this all the time because it's my favorite, but patients are waiting. That's like a BMS.
It's a BMS thing.
It's BMS says this, and it was one of the first things I remember even reading the brief. We were like, patients are waiting. Like there's so much urgency in that. And I think that really is just such a nice way to kind of keep that at the top of mind when we think about our partnership and we think about technology and all of those things. If we can keep that as like a guiding star, it's something, really nice for everyone to hold on to.
We've already talked about this a little bit, but the human loop that you mentioned, making sure that things aren't depersonalized, and even as we're using these tools for efficiency and whatever it may be, how are you ensuring they are still keeping it very the HI, as Eric likes to say, the human intelligence part of AI.
We were talking about this quite a bit lately, actually, and I keep referring to this other conference. Not that we don't love this one because it's in Cannes, but um, it was sort of technologically developed does not mean it's human relevant, and that stuck with me. And I've said it ad nauseum. I think Lori and Melissa are tired of hearing me say it, but you have to always have that human element. And I think in our industry in particular, because we know that someone actually is taking a product and putting it into their body and hoping that something is going to change about their life after that or change about how they feel. I think that I don't want to say it's a little bit easier for us to always remind ourselves of that human element, but that at the end of the day, that's what we're doing, and nothing against, consumer packaged goods or fashion or anything, but it's not changing your life the same way that perhaps a pharmaceutical can. At Bristol Myers Squibb, we have a very large culture of patients first. So I think inherently we always put that person there. And when it comes to AI, I think it's that gut check of humans, like making sure, does this really make sense? Or are we developing content that makes sense? Or are we just developing content based on what I told the engine it should be doing? And how do we make sure that whatever it is that we're developing is going to actually be meaningful for the people who are on the receiving end of it? And that can, to your point before, be anyone in that care continuum. And that's just something I think all of us, as we're learning more about how AI can change the way we do work, we just need to keep that in mind that at the end of the day, we're talking to humans. We're not talking to another computer.
Yeah. When I think about AI, I mean, it's driven by humans, right? We're the ones that are giving it prompts. We're the ones that are kind of asking the questions and feeding it something to build off of. I think that it's important. And I had attended an executive AI summit a few months ago, and I joked that it like scared the hell out of me. And I'll say it like I mean, I told the team when I came back, I'm like, I literally was like, cry. I'm like, how long can I hold my tears till I get to the bathroom? Because it was so emotional when you think about the way that it's being used, and not just in terms of, marketing and advertising and measurement, but how it's having such an impact on the way that we can think of our loved ones in the future. And like they were talking about an agent that they created from 20 years ago to have a conversation with themselves. And they're like, you could do agents of your parents. So we have to, think about ways that we can also humanize it. But once again, it has to start from us as individuals. And it's only, the humans that are going to keep it in check as well, and be able to say that we've gone too far if that point does happen. And I think that we've now been empowered, I think, more lately to say like technology is pushing us in a direction where we don't feel comfortable. And I think this is a space and a place where there's going to be a lot of discussion about it. Where's the utility, but where are the places that it may be kind of infringing in that are making us uncomfortable. So that's just a little personal thing. And we try to also, find ways, as I said earlier, to make it fun. And, kind of make some challenges for the teams too, to say can you create something that makes your life easier? And, give prizes and stuff like that. Because if you keep people engaged, that also helps. But we want them to learn too. And I think the learning piece is the stuff that's going to keep us excited about the future.
To that point, I think there's an element of making the technology available and creating freedom for your teams to try it out.
Yep.
Because as I said, like no one's got the answer of, it's not like the internet and all of a sudden everyone knows how to use it or knows how to search or something along those lines. It's figuring out what's going to work best for you, your team, the problem they're trying to solve, and creating that space and that culture for them to actually get in there, try it. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it comes up with something you're like, oh my God, that is unique. But how do you manage that so that they're still like,
That's a nice word.
so that they're still encouraged to try it again and try it again. And I think, Melissa, you touched on it. It is sometimes all about the prompts. Like, what am I asking this to do for me, or what question am I trying to solve for? And the smarter that you get in the prompts, the smarter the response that you often get back.
I can even give one example. We had a management meeting for one of the agencies where we talked specifically about health. I asked all of the managing directors and the health leaders one challenge. I said, I don't need you to put together a presentation. There's tons of great content. We have, everyone has so much on their plate. What can we use and repurpose. So we did that, but what I wanted to do was highlight each of the brands because they are so different. And said I want you to go into our AI console and interact with our interactive our end-to-end interactive platform and create a visual of what you want your brand or what you think that your brand represents. So give them the prompts to say, what this is the business and what are you most proud of, and show us the image of that. And it was absolutely incredible to see how different the clients were. But wonderful. I mean, one was like three, we have one smaller client and it came up as like three, like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, because it was like the size of the account is not too big and it's not too small and they all wear different hats. And you're like looking at them and the bears all had different hats on, and like some had like sassy hairdos. Like it was just so interesting to see the interpretation, which once again comes back to the fact that you as a human have to give them that direction. But everything was, it was amazing to see how they came back. And BMS was a beautiful, like it had all these different amazing things. I mean,
Of course it was.
it was.
I hope you have these framed. I hope they're hanging in a wall.
It's a great idea. We haven't framed them, but I think we should. We absolutely should. And then there was we have a newer client, and it had these like baby wolves, like in the wild, and they had the little, like you think of like a Saint Bernard with the things under the neck.
Like a little bit.
And it was like, this was a new team. It was a new piece of business, and they were baby wolves because they were fierce and they can be agile and they would grow into something amazing. Like it was just so incredible to see the difference. I won't
Save you in an avalanche.
I know, totally. They'll save you in an avalanche, and they're fast and smart. And so anyway, sorry.
Now I'm going to close us out. We're asking the same question on all of our panels. So we're celebrating a decade of deep learning. What do you think is the most underrated opportunity for marketers in the next 10 months? Not quite a year.
10 months. Okay.
I know. Someone said if it helps yesterday. Apparently that's when new fronts will be, if that helps your frame of mind.
Underrated. I don't know. It'll be something new. I feel like the speed of change is so consistent, and we're all kind of changing and transforming at the same time. It's something we probably don't even know about yet.
I would tag on to that and say it's probably a channel or a place where you're absorbing content that you're going to then absorb in a very, very different way. And the only one I can think of right now would be like Be Real. So as that's kind of evolved now that, because I love my
You
Be
love
Real.
Be Real.
I love Be Real.
Talk about Be Real in a while.
Right now, because
I don't know, but if it
That's
is,
the time of day.
Uh-huh.
It's all take a Be
Yeah.
Real.
it's a good one. But they're starting to have advertisements, so I think it's seeing how some of the content delivery channels evolve and how they're leveraging some of this technology in my industry to show where patients perhaps are going to get, not to get information, but where would be a good place for us to put our information that they're already on. But I think, as all these platforms, all these amazing companies that are here, it's where are they going to be? And then how do we fit with that to get our message out?
Well, Denise, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Here,
Thank
lunch
you.
downstairs.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.